But the TTIP, CETA, TISA, all these other free trade deals that we're against here today. Today is a day of action against these trade deals. In short, they are a big business lobbyist's dream come true. This is payday for the big business lobbies. They are sitting in their offices on Rond-Point Schumann, Rue de la Loi, and they're rubbing their hands together in expectation of what they're going to win from this. And you know how we know this? We know this from leaked documents that we've received as an organisation. We do research, and we've been given so many documents by the European Commission secretly, because even the European Commission, who's leading these negotiations, is scared of what's happening. And what we've seen from these documents is that the plan is to weaken, in short, weaken regulations around healthcare, food, around social security, around chemicals, all of these things, because they're seen as costly. They're getting in the way of growth. They haven't once asked, who is this growth for? Who is this costly to? Is it costly to us? It's supposed to protect us. These are our rights. We have a right to good health, a right to work. And unfortunately, with these weakening, we're going to see deadly chemicals that were banned be looked at again. GMOs, financial speculation. And unfortunately, it's not just regulations which are going to go down. This goes further. It's not just current regulations, it's future regulations. Because these negotiations behind closed doors are not just business saying, we don't like GMOs being banned in Europe, bring them in. This is about future regulation. And so one of the first lobby meetings between the big business lobby here in Brussels, Business Europe, and the European Commission, they said, we want to create a transatlantic regulatory cooperation council, which means big business can sit at the table and have a say on all future regulations and whether these regulations get in the way of growth and free trade. So all future regulations, be them in Brussels, Belgium, or the EU, have to pass through this new council, transatlantic council with business, so they get to say what goes and what doesn't. And if they still don't get what they want through this transatlantic cooperation council, they've got another means that's being introduced through this free trade deal. And it's called the investor-to-state dispute settlement. In short, it's a secret private court which allows big business to sue governments if they dare to regulate in the public interest. If you dare to ban fracking, Chevron will say, well, we thought you were going to allow fracking and we've invested a bit of money, and then by 2050 we want to earn 20 billion, so you've just taken our 20 billion away and we're going to sue you. So they're creating these courts. But unfortunately, it's not just about regulation, current or future. It's also about privatization. This is about cutting up our public services into small pieces and giving them to big corporations to make money out of our basic needs. Our need for health, for education, for safety. I'm sure we'll hear more about this later. But as I said, TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, this EU-US free trade deal, is a big business lobbyist's dream come true. But at the heart of it, it's not about trade, it's about democracy. At the heart of this is a privatization of democracy. This is taking any power, we haven't got much power at the moment, let's be honest, but it's taking what power we do have, that's supposed to sit with our governments, and it's giving it to big corporations that operate on both sides of the Atlantic. And this is the same deal being pushed not just by big business, but by our own governments. The main cheerleaders are our own governments. So this is quite shocking. If we're in a democracy, surely our governments are supposed to look out for us. They're supposed to look out for our public interests, because they're public institutions, no? So how did this happen? Unfortunately, public interest in the eyes of our governments, in the eyes of the European Commission, is the same as corporate interests. What's good for big business is surely good for the rest of us, because it creates jobs. And they never ask, but who's it good for? Is it really good for all of Europe, us as citizens, rather than realising the interests of big business, which is to lower regulation, is against the interest of us, the people? TTIP is perhaps the best example how governments, and particularly the European Commission here in Brussels, is pushing that. So just to give an overview, when preparing for the negotiations, what would they negotiate about with the US? They met stakeholders, which can be lobbyists, trade unions, anyone, big business, 560 times, 560 different encounters, be it meetings, debates, stakeholder dialogues, with 295 different stakeholders. So that's a lot of meetings. Out of all of those meetings, 92% were with the private sector. 92% with big business lobbies. 4% were with public interest groups like trade unions, consumer groups, environmental NGOs, 4%. And then 4% was other, academics, individuals, or public authorities. That means for every one meeting with trade unions or with an environmental group, there were 20 with a big business lobby. So we shouldn't be surprised at what we see here, that this is a corporate bill of rights. This is giving corporations rights over citizens and being pushed by our governments. And out of the 25 most common stakeholders who had the most meetings with the European Commission, not one trade union, not one environmental group, not one public interest group out of the top 25 stakeholders. All of them were big business lobbies, banking sector, car industries, industrial agriculture. And so you might ask, okay, is this from a difference in resources? As civil society, we're pretty poor. Big business has lots of money. No. No, the European Commission, a public institution leading these negotiations, proactively went out and sought the opinions and views of the big business lobbies. So an example, they had a consultation before the negotiations, and it turns out the pesticide lobby here in Brussels, the ECPA, had not submitted its consultation response. So the European Commission wrote it a letter asking it to take part, and I quote, "Because pesticides, crop protection, is one of the key sectors we would be looking at in terms of improving the framework for business. The pesticides industry has lobbied against bans on deadly chemicals, the chemicals and pesticides that are killing the bee population, that might end to the end of agriculture as we know it. These are the industries that have been pushing that, but yet this is who the Commission is reaching out to proactively. And not just reaching out to them, they've also asked, please, can you get hold of your sister organisation in the US to make sure they're also pushing for your interests, so that both of you can push together and make sure this feels like a united front." They didn't do that for trade unions. They didn't do that for my organisation. The Commission didn't ring us up and say, what do you think? No, they did this for big business lobbies. And when the submissions were given in, trade unions got, "Thank you for your submission." The car industry got a letter saying, "Please come in and see us. We really like what you've said. We want to discuss it further." The agenda is a big business agenda. I think it's completely clear. Unfortunately, it's our public institutions and our governments that ultimately, they are actively pushing a deal to benefit transnational corporations at our expense. That's not democracy. That's not the democracy I want to see, where we have a voice. But it doesn't have to be like that. This is not a done deal. This is not something that we have to sit back, take, and feel our democracy being taken away from us. It's actually up to us, everyone here in this room, to take action. As individuals, as collectives, as communities, as organisations. It's up to us to demand our politicians to listen to us, to not make these deals behind our backs, behind closed doors. It's up to us to get out into the streets and make our voices heard and make sure they cannot ignore us. Don't get fooled by their reform agenda. They'll tweak a bit here, they'll change a bit there. This is the same thing, and we need to reject this. No free trade deals at all. No TTIP, no CETA, no TISA, none of this. And to say us here in this room, we have an important role to play because we are in Brussels. Brussels is the heart of this EU project, the heart of this free trade regime. This is where the European Commission is in its ivory tower. This is where 30,000 corporate lobbyists are in Brussels pushing their agenda. And we are here. And so what we've been doing as D19-20 is confronting them, is trying to challenge their legitimacy, show them for what they are, show them for whose interests they are pushing, which are not our interests. So us in this room I would hope to see all of us have a chance to actually stand up and be listened to and make our voices heard, if not now, then on 19th of December in the streets of Brussels when we're confronting the European Summit as D19-20. But this is not just fighting against free trade. This is fighting against a corporate power grab, fighting for the right to have a voice, for democracy to be shaped by us, EU and American citizens, not by unelected bureaucrats in the European Commission, not by unaccountable governments or corporations. And we won't stop with TTIP, with CETA, with TISA. When we win, or even before we win, we need to turn this fight on austerity. It's not just free trade, this is austerity. By the same corporate power grab, facilitated by the same governments putting corporate interests before ours. But we're not facing this alone. Today is the European Day of Action against TTIP, CETA, TISA, against these free trade deals. So today across Europe, people are all coming out in different cities, in France, in Germany, Portugal, Spain, Greece, here in Belgium, to say no, we're doing this together, to fight against the same enemy, an enemy that's trying to use its money to buy politics and democracy, that's trying to use its money to silence us. But we won't be silenced. We refuse to be silenced. We refuse to accept their neoliberal medicine. We refuse to accept the attack on public services, our health, wages, environment, our ability to have a say. We, as the 99%, refuse to accept their greed and to accept that we are to be sacrificed at the altar of the 1%. We will not be silenced. We will not lie down and be walked on by multinationals and our so-called governments who are supposed to represent us. And we certainly will not accept this free trade deal or any other. So no TTIP, no CETA, no TISA, no to them and no to austerity. We need to reclaim democracy.